Welcome to another episode of Gender Perspectives on Signature TV, where we unpack the complex ways gender shapes our lives, our relationships, and our systems. Now today we are diving into an often hidden but deeply damaging issue, which is emotional abuse, and the gendered realities that surround it. And so we ask, what happens when emotional abuse doesn't follow the script? When men are victims, when women are abusers, and people generally face harm that society doesn't even have words for. My name is Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha, and we'll continue this conversation after this timeout.
We are local.
We are right now with the wife of the man that was
Why the main market is in chaos. People
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye.
we have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
Welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, you're watching Gender Perspectives, and we're still on the conversation of confronting gendered realities of emotional abuse. Now, emotional abuse involves a consistent pattern of behavior which is aimed at controlling, manipulating, belittling, or isolating another person. And it also includes tactics such as gaslighting, verbal insults, threats, blame shifting, emotional blackmail, and, chronic invalidation. And while emotional abuse leaves no physical scars, its impact can be just as, if not more, devastating than physical violence. And yet, because of cultural norms, gender stereotypes, and silence, it often goes unrecognized, especially when it doesn't fit the traditional narrative of male perpetrator, female victim. But our background reports will help us understand this a bit better.
Emotional abuse, while often hidden from plain sight, is a pervasive and insidious form of violence that leaves deep psychological scars. Unlike physical abuse, which is more readily recognized and condemned, emotional abuse can be subtle, sustained, and easily dismissed, particularly when viewed through gendered lenses. Emotional abuse involves a consistent pattern of behavior aimed at controlling, manipulating, belittling, or isolating another person. It includes tactics such as gaslighting, verbal insults, threats, blame shifting, emotional blackmail, and chronic invalidation. Unlike physical violence, emotional abuse often operates under the radar, leaving no visible marks but eroding the victim's sense of self, autonomy, and worth. While emotional abuse can occur in various relationships, including families, friendships, and workplaces, it is most commonly studied in the context of intimate relationships. In this context, the abuse functions as a tool for exerting dominance and power over a partner. Examples of emotional abuse include things such as humiliation and criticism like name-calling, insults, belittling accomplishments. Control and shame such as monitoring whereabouts, digital spying, gaslighting, making unilateral decisions. Accusing, blaming, and denial like trivializing feelings, blaming the victim for the abuser's problems. Neglect and isolation like eliminating contact with friends and family. Research and lived experience show that women are more likely to report emotional abuse, often alongside other forms of intimate partner violence. In many cases, this abuse is rooted in patriarchal ideologies that assign women subordinate roles, promote male entitlement, and normalize male control. Tactics like jealousy framed as a protection, or isolating a partner from friends and finances, are often dismissed as normal relationship behaviors, particularly when men are the perpetrators. Additionally, women face heightened barriers in living emotionally abusive situations, including economic dependence, child custody threats, and societal victim blaming. Men also experience emotional abuse, but social norms that equate masculinity with strength, stoicism, and emotional suppression create significant barriers to acknowledgement and help-seeking. Many male survivors fear disbelief, ridicule, or being perceived as weak. As a result, the abuse often goes underreported or unrecognized. Male victims may face unique forms of abuse, such as humiliation targeting their masculinity or parental alienation during custody battles. When they do seek support, services are often ill-equipped or biased, reinforcing the invisibility of male victimhood. Cultural norms, religious beliefs, media representations, and legal frameworks all shape societal understandings of emotional abuse. In many communities, women are still expected to be nurturing, submissive, and forgiving, which can pressure them to tolerate abuse. Men, meanwhile, may internalize beliefs that seeking help is unmanly. Even within legal systems, emotional abuse is frequently under-recognized, with many jurisdictions lacking clear legal definitions or adequate protections. When it is acknowledged, responses often fail to reflect the gendered dimensions of power, control, and vulnerability. Emotional abuse is not gender-neutral, even though it affects people of all genders. It is shaped by deeply rooted societal structures that influence how it is experienced, interpreted, and addressed. Confronting its gendered realities means dismantling harmful norms, expanding our definitions of survivorship, and ensuring that no one, regardless of gender identity or expression, is left invisible or unsupported. Only by taking an intersectional and inclusive approach can we truly address the hidden epidemic of emotional abuse. Addressing the gendered realities of emotional abuse requires tailored support and resources. While general services for domestic violence victims are crucial, recognizing the specific needs and experiences of different genders is essential. For women, this includes access to safe shelters, counseling that addresses trauma and the impact of gender inequality, legal aid, and economic empowerment programs. For men who experience emotional abuse, it's vital to have resources that acknowledge their experiences without judgment and provide pathways to support and healing. Breaking down societal stigma around male victimization is also a key aspect of effective intervention.
We're deep in conversation about confronting gendered realities of emotional abuse. And as our background report highlights, emotional abuse isn't always loud or visible, and it certainly doesn't always follow the patterns we expect. Society often frames abuse through a narrow lens, usually a man as the aggressor and the woman as the victim. And while that does not reflect many real experiences, it's far from the whole picture. Emotional abuse can be subtle and gendered in complex ways. It can happen to men who are often silenced by toxic masculinity and shame. It can happen to women, especially in cultures where speaking out is discouraged or where emotional control is normalized as discipline or love. Now, to help us confront these layered truths, we are joined by Ngozi Ebo. She is the Executive Director, Global Initiative for Development, Care of Women and Youth, GID COWE, and she will shed more light on this issue and help us explore how gender influences not just who experiences emotional abuse, but how it's understood, responded to, and prevented. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Okay, so let's start with the basics. In your view, what is emotional abuse, and why do you think it's often overlooked or misunderstood?
Yeah, your background has really done a whole lot of justice to the topic. You know, it's emotional, so you can't really hold it in your hands. You know, it's not like it's tangible. And it comes under a whole lot of guise, maybe protection for a woman, you know, being macho for a man. So most times it's swept under the carpet. I was in a meeting and some people were asking the team lead of that group, how do we deal with hurt when someone has hurt us? And he said, when you're hurt, just find a way to forgive and move on. You know, we just have nice ways of just saying, just move on. No. Are there measures? Can whoever has hurt this person be called? Can there be a dialogue? Can there be some form of pacifying of someone who feels hurt? We usually don't go into all of that. Just go ahead, just forgive, you know, it's normal, you know. So we wave it off because it's not tangible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what does this emotional abuse, what does it entail? What is it that will be done and it will be termed emotional abuse?
abuse is already something that contravenes someone's person. When you try to demean a person, it's a form of abuse. Whether it is through the words you've spoken to the person or through your actions, to that person, it's a form of abuse. You are trying to bring the person a little lower than the person is,
Yeah.
as a human being. That's already an emotional abuse. How do we deal with it? That's your question.
No, like what are the things people do that will be called emotional abuse? Yeah.
When you throw tantrums at people, when you demean someone's person, when you tell someone, I know you are so daft, you just can't learn fast. Some people don't learn as fast as others do, and we must have to understand whether it's in a workplace or it's in a school. Okay, no one should receive that kind of blame game from the other party. When all of that is done, you are dealing with someone's emotion. Or when you try to withhold something that ought to be for someone, let's say a husband who feels, okay, my wife didn't serve me dinner, or I didn't quite enjoy the dinner she served, so for that I won't give her money for food the next day. That's emotional abuse. You're dealing with her emotions. You're trying to let her know that you have more authority and you can determine whether she eats or not, that she's dependent on you. So when these things show up, then one form of emotional abuse or the other is already in place. Or when you don't feel someone's pain, someone is saying I'm pained, and you're like, get out. Why should this make you angry? It's so normal. Why should you be angry because of it? Is it just this? But we absorb things at different levels. So if I feel that I am not happy with the way you treated me, I do have a right to my feelings, and you shouldn't do anything to demean it or sweep it under the carpet or tell me that I'm immature
Or overreacting.
Aha.
Yeah, because
Why are you overreacting? I just said this now. Is that not what I told Peter? Then you now told John, and John says, no, I am angry. Why now? John, you're not mature. You ought to be mature. So when that happens, emotional abuse has set in.
yes, and so that means that emotional abuse is not strictly for couples or married people. It also goes into friendships and relationships generally with
Yes,
other
yes,
people.
definitely.
So how do you think traditional gender roles and stereotype, do you think it contributes to this emotional
To a very large
abuse?
extent, it does. The culture of silence.
Okay.
Whatever is happening in your home, keep quiet. In Igbo parlance, they will say "dibundidi," as in when you get married, then you now learn to be patient. So if you maybe are so pressed in your home and you want to talk to your mom, she says, "Please take care of your home. I know what I went through with your father to get to this point." So traditional gender roles has made it normal for a woman to be abused, or a woman decides to go to a police station to report. They say, madam, go back home, it's a family matter, and it's dismissed at that point because of gender roles, because you believe, what's wrong with this woman? Abeg, go and cook for your children. Your own is to cook for your children, whether you're angry, you're sad, whether you feel abused, whether you feel not heard or not listened to. Go and cook for your children and take care of your husband. So traditional gender roles have so heightened it. A woman does not break kola nut. I was an MC at an event. When you got to kola nut time, they said, MC, please shift. Let a man come and
That I think that's more of like the traditional
because
part of
if
it.
I do not have a high self-esteem as a person, you are already demeaning me. You're telling me that no matter where I go in this world, as long as I am female, me and kola nut should not have, we should be parallel lines.
But is it an abuse to your emotions though?
Yes, it is. I am in the room. I am part of the meeting. So, okay, if they were sharing drinks, would they give me? So, why would you get to kola nut and you exclude me from it?
Okay. So you've spoken about the women, But do you think these stereotypes also, affect men too when it comes to emotional abuse?
Yeah, but not as much as it does for women, because we live in a world where most people will say it's a man's world. So whatever a man does, it's fine. He's the head of the home. He can just do anything. In fact, if you try to abuse him, he will abuse you times 10.
But don't
Don't
you think that this idea, like you said, it's a man's world? So don't you think they are also boxed in their own way when it comes to expression?
Yes.
And also, how, because they also have emotions regardless of whatever society, tries to. And because of that idea, don't you think it boxes them,
Yeah, it does.
Because they also...
Yes, it does, but not to a large extent, because they have lots and lots of options in this world to deal with a woman, whether as a brother or as a father or as a husband. They have lots and lots. In fact, there are many things you would want to do now. Let's say you're looking for a house and you are a single parent, you are female. They will ask you to go and bring a man figure before they will give you the house. So the man knows that it is his world. But at times too, there are few men that go through a whole lot of emotional pain, and because of their ego, and they've been told that men don't cry. Why would you cry? Crying is for women. So he bottles up a whole lot. At times suicide. At times I've heard of cases where a man just takes his suitcase and just walks away from the home. Just leave, oh woman, live with your children while I just take my leave. So these things can lead to outcomes like you explained.
So now, seeing how the society is, and the difference with how women are handled differently and men are handled differently, can you just talk about how men and women are socialized differently when it comes to how they express emotions and how they respond to emotional harm or emotional abuse?
Yeah, how we express emotions from birth. If it's a female child, you're already told, don't you know that you are female? So it keeps ringing a bell. Don't you know that you're female? And let's say you go for youth service and you're back. Somewhere at the back of your parents' brain is like, what's going on? What's next? Who is going to marry her? But for the guy, they are not thinking of who is he going to bring home. He should go and hustle and get money, okay? But for the lady, we finished training her and she's back to this house. Does she even have a relationship? So they have tried to wire us that way. So if a woman gets to 30 and she's not married, hey, all the alerts in her brain at every second will just be ringing, screaming. And so she can get into any kind of relationship just to answer that name, Mrs. That's, I think, more of the divorce cases we have is that society mounts a whole lot of pressure, especially on the woman, to get married. So she just has to get married. The mom has to become mother of... The mom has to go for Mugo, and if it's possible, outside Nigeria is better than within Nigeria.
Yeah.
So that makes the woman very vulnerable. At the time she is under her parents' roof, she obeys all the instructions from the father. She gets married. She's under the husband. She has to obey all the instructions. At no point is she a human being. And that's why it's difficult when you come to the career world for women to rise. It takes a man to rise. For a woman to rise, times 10. She has to work extra hard. Because society has conditioned her that you're not meant to lead. So when men see a woman rise, she's arrogant, she's too radical, she's assertive. But those same qualities are what the normal man would have, and they'll say, wow, you're doing so great. So how come the woman has it and she talks too much, arrogance and all? So that's how society keeps wiring women.
Okay. So from what you've said now, not just women but also wires men too.
Yes, wires them to know that they are the ones in charge, no matter what. I've had cases where women work and they have to go and submit their salaries to their husbands. I've had a case where a woman was empowered with as low as 50,000 naira, and she got back home. The man had to use something to break her hand because of 50K. So for the man, I married you, I paid your bride price. So whatever accrues to you, I am the one who should enjoy it. I should be the one to now give you if I feel that you need. It's crazy.
It's really crazy. Okay, so so far, right, our focus has been on the women. And I know I mentioned something about the men, but now I want us to maybe throw a little bit more light on men, because do you think men face unique challenges specific to them, the same way women have their own unique challenges when it comes to their emotions and how they are abused emotionally? Now, do you think men also face unique challenges when it comes to emotional abuse?
So true, they do.
Okay.
We respond to life differently because we are not the same. Okay, we all wear our gendered lens. The man wears his own, and the woman wears hers. So there is no way we would feel our pain the same way. For a man, it's more like a pain of I haven't arrived and I'm not happy about it. My mates have all arrived and I'm yet to arrive. So it's either he tries to do something to prove to society that he's a man, you know, and when he goes through some form of emotional abuse, he could go into drinking more, or partying, wildlife, just to see if he can take away the pain, or he could just put it all inside, or maybe look for a side chick so that he will live long.
Wow.
He will look for a side chick, not because but in fairness, there are some men who keep side chicks not because they ever planned to, or some men who have second wives not because they planned to, but they just couldn't contain the attitude or the character of the woman at home. So in order to find peace elsewhere, since society empowers them, you can marry 10, you can marry 15. Not like a woman. You can't marry 2 men. But for a man, he can choose, as long as he has his money, he can choose to marry 10. So he could just say, okay, let me try this side chick first for 3 years. If it works out, then I can bring her home. So he can react in any of those ways.
Okay, so that leads to the question, in what ways do women abuse men emotionally? Because in as much as men abuse women too, women also have, their own ways in which they abuse men. So what are those
for
ways?
some women, it's in what they say, and it's also in denial. Okay, especially when it comes to the family setting, a woman feels that you have not measured up as a man. Maybe she goes out in her office, she sees men and they drive good cars, and you, keke, you don't have. So when she wants to talk to you, she releases venom on you, and it's like, you are pained. It's not what you expect, and maybe you've been working so hard, but somehow life hasn't just been that fair to you. So she could speak some words to you. She could also deny you a marriage, maybe your sexual rights. She denies you, just because she feels that she made a mistake by even marrying you. And she keeps pushing it to your face that you are a mistake. And when she also does not recognize you as a head, because when we talk about these things, we're not saying that a woman wouldn't recognize who the head is in the family, okay? When she refuses to recognize that you are the head, or has her own counter instructions, and she just pushes it to your face that you just can't do anything. These are ways that women abuse men.
Let's get a bit personal now. Have you encountered anybody, male or female, who has gone through some form of emotional abuse? And how, do you have any experience as to maybe meeting somebody or having an encounter with somebody who has gone through this kind of thing, and how they were able to come out
deal
of
with
it?
a whole lot of survivors in the work that we do, and let me talk about one of the survivors. She was a seamstress in Enugu, and the Christmas period, this guy comes back to the village for Christmas and sees her and likes her, and before Easter or close to Easter, he performed all the marriage rites and took her to Lagos. She said she hadn't been to Lagos before, and she went into that marriage with everything in her, and on getting there, if she needed to step out of the compound, she needed to obtain permission. In fact, she couldn't leave her home when the man wasn't there, except for going to the market or going to pick up her son. But that for her wasn't even the issue. The issue was that each time the man would come back in the evening, I guess it's a public compound, the man would speak to her in ways she wouldn't like, beat her up if he feels there's anything she ought to have done that she hasn't done, to the point where I guess the man was into one form of cultism, to the point where her undies, her panties, she would suddenly start looking for them. Okay, and she would ask the man, and the man would just give her a dirty slap for even asking where her undies were. At some point, no money, no business, nothing. Then she tried to escape. I don't know who told, I don't know, maybe someone in the compound told the man. The man came to the park, picked her back to the house. But eventually, over time, she escaped and came back to her family house in Enugu. And we met in Enugu when she told this story. So she said she was done with the marriage. So the first, she got in contact with her husband's people to say, we want to return the bride price. And those ones were like playing her. And so we took her to FIDA. FIDA said, go to the court, to the customary court in your village. Since you had traditional marriage, go there and return that bride price if they don't want to accept it from you. So that was what she did, and she had to start life all over again. She went back to her sewing business and began picking the pieces of her life.
Okay, wow, that's quite a story. That's a very sad one. Did it aside from because you mentioned I believe he also physically abused her during the course of that, but since we're talking on emotional abuse, were there any side effects or from that encounter, that experience, that because emotional abuse kind of makes someone feel like they are not enough, kind of reduces their self-esteem. So did it affect her in that area in any kind of way, or
okay,
is she struggling with some
maybe
form
I should
of...
give you the other part of the story, because she said that when she came back for 4 to 5 months, her family made her stay indoors, not to come out, because she was looking so emaciated. She needed to get her psyche back, so she stayed indoors for 4 to 5 months before she started coming out to her mom's shop. A whole lot of damage was done to her. The psychological, for typically not for the Gen Zs, but for those who were born in maybe 70s or early 80s, when they go into marriage, they actually go in with all their heart and they're not wishing to come out. So these things, they look like they truncate somebody's life, truncate all your plans. After 10 years, you're back to square zero. You feel inadequate. Your self-esteem is at the lowest ebb that it can ever be. And for her, she believes all men are just the same. These are the side effects, that it had on her.
Do you think physical abuse and emotional abuse go hand in hand?
Once you see one abuse, there are many abuses that are around. They don't exist in isolation. So once you find physical abuse, check well. Psychological, emotional, financial, whatever is there.
It's all okay. So at the end of the day, one abuse takes care of the rest.
Yes, because by the time you hit a woman, you must be saying something. Stupid idiot. You are hitting her. Oh yeah, get out of this house. All manner of things. So they all go hand in hand. In fact, for that, tomorrow I'm going to give you money for food. Let me come back to this house and not eat. So emotional, psychological. So where do you want her to get the funds? Assuming you have stopped her from working. So once you find one, look very well. The other ones are around.
Well, do you also handle cases with men?
Yes, we do.
So have you handled any case?
The issue is that most men wouldn't want to.
Okay.
But I remember visiting at the House Committee Chairman on Education at the Enugu State House of Assembly. We're actually planning to have, a men's roundtable. He shared some experiences some men had shared with him, and said those men wouldn't want to come public to share. So if we could maybe organize a men's roundtable and we'll talk about it. Because men wouldn't just want to come out and say, my wife has been dealing with me. They'll be like, hey, are you a man? Or you're a woman?
Wow.
So their own form of recuperation is different from that of a woman. A woman can be telling everyone, I'm dying, he has not given me food. But not for a man.
Yes.
He wants to, bottle it up and
protect his ego.
Yes. It's an ego thing.
Yes, it is. Now, coming down to our legal systems, you mentioned that the lady, you handled her case, you had to tell her to go to the customary courts.
Yeah.
Now, do you...
FIDA. FIDA is a federation of lawyers. They have branches all over Nigeria, and they do pro bono cases for survivors.
Exactly. So, do you think that our legal system, they adequately recognize and respond to emotional abuse? Because most of the cases are physical. So, but when it comes to this aspect of abuse, do you think our legal system actually, give it the attention?
Even the physical, let's even begin from the physical. Even the physical, so far, some progress has happened, but we haven't yet reached where we want to get to, even with the physical. At times, the story of Osinachi and the husband, and the fact that he's been sentenced to hanging, like we heard, and I asked myself a question: how come we haven't heard that someone who hit the wife and the wife died, was sentenced to hanging? This is the first time I'm hearing it. So does it mean that all other men, they found them not guilty? I still think that our judiciary, of course, is work in progress, but there is this thing about someone who has influence in society. When someone has that kind of influence, at times it looks like justice is not really meted the way it should be. But for the guy who doesn't have anyone to speak, you are the one who is at fault. All the provisions of the law will come heavy on you. How come we're just hearing of hanging for him? We heard of a case of a commissioner in Anambra State some years back who hit his wife until his wife died. I didn't hear anything again about that case. Nobody sentenced the guy to anything. So we still need our judiciary to,
a lot of work still needs to be done, because it's not enough at this point. No balance. That's a good one. And the media as well. Do you think that the media contributes to the normalization of, emotional abusive behaviors? Especially when the way it portrays gender in relationships and, things like that. Media, social media, all forms of media. Do you think they have...
Media is not out of the society. Media is part of the society. So if a media personnel doesn't understand what gender is about and protection of rights of women, he or she will be the first to even do the abuse. For instance, when someone tells you women dress well so that you're not raped, and I ask, would you go to a stinking gutter and scoop water and drink because you're thirsty? You won't do that. So I am not holding brief for women who don't dress well. in quote, whatever that you're dressing well
Means.
because dressing for the beach is not the same as dressing for church.
Yeah.
So I won't appear all dressed up for the beach, you know. So we all need to be schooled on all of these things. No, there is no reason that is justified for abuse. Not one. Not one. Because if a woman is not properly dressed, what's your problem? Go your way. Did she drag you or something? You can as well ignore. Do you know how many things you ignore when you're driving, for instance? Okay, so you would have, maybe you see where people are fighting, you stop. You now go and join because you saw people fighting. So just ignore and go your way. For that thing that you feel that is indecent is relative. It may just be that the weather for that woman is so hot and she decides to wear something that just have, just one slip, and you're like, hi, she's even showing all her hands. Just pass and go. So if the media is not trained to understand all of this, they would keep re-stigmatizing a survivor. You were raped because you were walking on a lonely path. You were raped because your cleavage was showing. You were raped because you're beautiful and you now made up. See what
yeah.
So the media needs to be schooled to understand issues around gender and abuse.
Yeah.
No one has the right to abuse any person. And when a case of abuse has been established, it's no more between the two persons. It's between the government and the abuser. It's no more Chike raped Mary. It's now, the matter is now between Chike and the government because it's a criminal offense, as criminal as armed robbery.
Yes, that is true. Now, in our day-to-day encounters and in our relationships with people, both whether in the family or, as married people, there are certain words, there are certain phrases that people use every day. It seems normal to them, but it affects other people. So are there, some of those language people use in everyday life that might unintentionally, be a form of emotional abuse?
There are so many. There are so many. When a man looks at, marrying a career woman or a woman who is not a sit-at-home mom, if a man is not secure and if a man hasn't decided to let that woman fly, he will so hunt her. And he has enough reasons, backed by society to really hunt her. So you hear something like, and you call yourself the mother of this child, and you don't even know that your child does not have this, and you call yourself this, and you're coming back. Or if a woman now decides to join politics, oh my God. So your own is just to be following men about, and you say you're holding meetings at midnight. But if that woman is a nurse, she can go for her night duty. If she were to be in the media industry, she can go for her night shift. But if she goes into politics and goes for night meetings, there are many things. In fact, you could even tell her that from that meeting, just locate your father's house and just be going. So these things, you could say a whole lot. Or like I talked about a woman to a man, when you think he's not measuring up. As in, that story they told of an empowerment for widows, and a woman whose husband is still alive joined the line for widows. And they asked her, he had even the ondo. When you hear such things, when some women actually say a whole lot to their husbands, because maybe the idea they had when they were getting married is that this man would solve all my problems times 1 million, and now you are in one hundredth of your problems he hasn't solved. So you see him as a failure. So you just treat him like one dog that you just got in the house to protect the house. This is your food. Yeah, we don't have food.
Yeah.
Such things.
Okay, finally, before we go, What do you have to say to people who are survivors of emotional abuse and also people who emotionally abuse others?
Okay, for survivors, it's not the end of the world. Um, you have gone through a season and determined not to inflict your pain on anyone. Most times, what happens is that most people now inflict that same pain that they went through on another person, or you just want to make things difficult for others because it was made difficult for you. First, you have to understand that it's not because you are not worthy that all that happened to you happened. It wasn't because you were not a good wife, for instance, if it happened in a marriage relationship. So you need to understand all of that first of all, so you don't begin to blame yourself for the rest of your life and so, okay, see now all these other ones, their marriages are working, there must be something they are doing that I didn't do, that's why mine failed. No, no, no. Just come out from that and forgive yourself, look at it critically, learn your lessons, and move on with your life.
And what about those that emotionally abuse others?
Hi. Most times they don't even
They
know.
don't know.
They don't know. Whatever you do to someone that looks like taking away the person's rights by force, the use of force, because you did this, I won't do this. Even parents self, I remember in those days in school, maybe just that you spilled water on the floor. You will just hear, after all the school fees have been paying, look at how stupid you've been behaving. Just water that you just call the person and say, please, could you mop?
Yeah.
So
it's just to be more conscious of how we speak.
Be more conscious that no one really owns anyone. Parents of those days, not today's parents. Today's parents, they are on the other extreme. Parents of those days will tell you, as long as you're under my roof. And one day they still will die. So what's all this? So understand that you don't own anyone. Even the child that you gave birth to, you are not the owner.
Okay, we have actually run out of time, but thank you so much. I had, so much fun having this conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll go on a short break and Gender Perspective continues. Welcome back. Well, emotional abuse is often misunderstood, minimized, or completely dismissed, especially when filtered through gendered stereotypes. And too many people suffer in silence because the abuse they're experiencing doesn't look like what society expects, or because they've been told it's not that serious. Now, it's time for one of the most eye-opening parts of our today's conversation, which is we're looking at the myths and facts about emotional abuse. And in this segment, we are setting the record straight. We'll unpack the common myths that keep emotional abuse hidden and the hard truths that need to be heard, whether it's about who can be abused, what emotional abuse really looks like, or why gender matters in how it's experienced and addressed. As we wrap up today's conversation, one thing is clear. Emotional abuse is real, it's harmful, and it doesn't always look the way we expect. It thrives in silence, and that silence is often shaped by gender norms, cultural expectations, and unequal power dynamics. Whether it's a woman being told to calm down or a man being told to man up, emotional abuse doesn't discriminate, but the way it's understood, recognized, and responded to often does. Now, confronting these gender realities means challenging what's been taught about love, control, vulnerability, and strength. It means listening differently, supporting survivors across the spectrum, and building systems that reflect the complexity of human experience. And if you or someone you know is experiencing emotional abuse, remember you are not alone and there is support out there. Thank you for joining us on Gender Perspectives. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the program. Make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms and make sure to stay tuned to SLTV channel 265. And until next time, I am Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. Enjoy the rest of your day.